Okay, so let's talk about the other aspect of the troubleshooting, that is the problems you might face while making your soap. Another example is soap volcano, or another problem you might face is soap volcano. Now, soap volcano simply occurs when there is overheating. It's overheating that causes soap volcano, like the photo you are seeing on your screen right now. Now, I think by now you know what causes overheating in soap. When there is too much sugars in your soup. So the normal sugar or honey, milk, they contain natural sugars. So when you use them in excess in your soup, if you don't put it in the freezer, your soup will overheat and then it will burst or it will crack and then it will pour out, just like the way it is showing in the photo on the screen. Also, when you soap at very high temperatures, that is when the oils and the lye water are too hot, it could also cause your soap to explode out of the mold. So when this happens, what you can do is you can use a spatula to press the top for it to go back inside, then you put it in the freezer. When it already overflows and pours on the floor, just fetch it back into a bigger mold. Alright, so that is it about soap volcano. And also make sure that you are using your sugars at the right quantity, like the honey or the milk. You are using them at the right quantity. If you are not too sure, just put it in the freezer to prevent this. Another problem you might face is when your soap becomes too hard and then it crumbles when you cut it. One reason is that you used too much sodium lactate. Sodium lactate helps to harden your soap faster, especially if you are using a lot of soft oils, so that your soap can harden up faster for you to remove out of the mold. Another reason could also be you added too much salt. When you are making soap, some people add sea salt to their soap. If it's too much, it can end up this way. The third reason is when there is too much lye in your soap. It will also end up this way, like you can see in the photo. The fourth reason is you probably didn't remove your soap from the mold at the right time, so it has become too hard for you to cut it. So what you can do is make sure that your lye is in the correct quantity. You use the sodium lactate or salt at the right amount. For instance, if you want to put sodium lactate in your soap, then it should be 1 teaspoon to 500 grams of oils. Yeah. Another problem you might face is discoloration. That is, your soap has a color that you are not expecting. Yeah, like the pictures we have now. So when your soap overheats, it can change the color. When a fragrance oil can also change the color of your soap. And then the colorant you are using, if you use it too light or too deep, it can also change the color of your soap. So now, here is what you can do to, like, generally, to prevent all this troubleshooting we talked about. Make sure that you check your recipe well, and make sure, that is why I told you earlier that when you enter your oils in the recipe, the soap calculator, make sure you write it in a notebook or any book that you are using for your soap. Make sure you write it down, so that when you are going to make your soap, you can refer to it and then you don't make mistakes. Also, make sure that you are soaping at lower temperatures. I always advise that you soap at room temperature, that is allowing the lye water and the oils to cool down completely. Otherwise, if you still want to soap at maybe warm if you still want to soap at warm temperature, make sure it is not above 48 or 49 degrees Celsius. Alright, then make sure that the fragrance oils, if you are not too sure of the fragrance oil you are going to use, add it to the oils before you add the lye solution. And also try and use when you are making soap, and before, for you to gain mastery over your soap making, you have to start by using more of soft oils first, so that it doesn't give you any problem.